What is going on, everyone? This is Ryan with Automatic Comics. In this video, we're going to talk about some comics that were really hot out there. Everybody was trying to grab these to see if they are still holding up with those prices. Now, you might be surprised by one of these because there's one that actually surprised me a little bit. So let's start getting into these. Now, the reason that I decided to make this video was because a sale that recently happened on the Big Heritage Signature Platinum Auction. And it was this book right here. It's the Amazing Spider-Man number 20 Uniqlo variant. You can see here that it was this 9.6 that sold this last weekend for $5,000. This was a book that in order to get it, you had to buy 2 of these Uniqlo t-shirts, and it was basically a free giveaway as part of that, which was kind of similar to how you had to get the Giant Size X-Men 1 foil that was selling recently. And so this was one that it's a very modern book, only came out in 2019. And so it's only been 6 years and it still has a ton of value. And so I thought that I would talk about some of these because this is the type of book that gets people to want to go out and pick up some of those modern spec books in the hope that that book will turn into something like this. Now, for every one of these, there's 1,000 books that or more that drop and don't continue to spike or don't increase in demand. But this is the type of book that gets people interested and to want to really go after this stuff. And there is one in here that I think might be a pretty reasonable option to at least think about setting aside, and one that we're going to talk about that actually has held its value pretty well. But we're going to start off with this book right here, Summer of Superman Special Number 1. This is a cover by Lozano. This is a Supergirl variant. I believe this wasn't even a ratio variant. There was another cover from this that was actually a ratio, and this became the book that was super hot that everybody wanted to get. You can see here, we'll take a closer look. It was this Supergirl cover, real cute cover, and so a lot of people really wanted to pick this one up. Now you can see there are quite a few of them that are up for sale. I don't know how many kind of maybe incorrect listings get pulled in here. You can see there's some that have multiple issues and that kind of thing. But we do have a lot that are up and available on eBay. Now, if we jump over and look at the sold prices for this, this is where I've talked about this before. If you have a seller's account, you can use what's called their product research tool. It's under this little thing up here under research, go to product research, and you can do a search and it gives you the actual sold listings. It gives you this really nice, as long as you make your search in a way that it doesn't pull in a bunch of junk data, it gives you this really nice chart of the prices over time and everything. It shows you the actual sold prices, if it was auction, fixed price, the shipping, everything. And so you can see here, this one was really interesting how right at the beginning, it didn't spike. So at the beginning, it was kind of, just a flat price. It was going about $5, $6. And then all of a sudden had this big jump and it has trended back down. So you can see here that this jumped up to a high of $27.52. It did have a couple random high ones in here later on, $29.99, and this one here, $29.04. But for the most part, it has trended back down, and it seems like it is leveling off around approximately $15. That is approximately the price that this book is going for today, give or take. Now, will this one hold up long term? Especially with Supergirl being in the next Superman movie and getting her own movie and all that kind of thing. Will this one hold up long term? Maybe. But the thing that makes me a little nervous about this one is just how many copies are out there. So you can see here, like I showed in this, like there are just a ton of them up and available for sale. And there's also a second print because it was so popular. There was a second print of this as well. And so there's just so many of them that I would be I wouldn't expect this to really do too much long term. Maybe it trends up a little bit over time, but I feel like this one is going to stay pretty flat to even maybe trending down some more. So this is one of those books that I don't think it has the elements in it that are really going to make it anything kind of like this Uniqlo variant, that it's going to be something that jumps or holds its value all that well. Now, the next one is the Giant Size X-Men 1 GameStop foil. This one I like a little bit more just because it actually had a purchase requirement in order to get it. So you had to pick up, well, most people had to pick up 2 of these Marvel figurines or Marvel statues in order to get the Giant Size X-Men 1 foil. But some people were able to go in and just ask for them and get them for free. Some people were able to get them with buying one statue or just making some random purchase. It was not a very consistent rollout with how you got these books. We also don't really know how many for sure are out there, and you can tell there are a lot available on eBay. A lot of people were hunting for this. I talked about this in a video. People were really excited about this one. It started out because it seemed like it was a very low distribution, which is something that would set it up for potential success. People were saying that, oh, this is only being given to some of the top selling stores because it was only appearing in a few places. But then all of a sudden it started appearing in more and more and more stores. And they just seemed like they were getting out there everywhere. And you can tell there are 70 up for sale right now. I think that this, and maybe even some of these that have multiples, and most of these are the correct listing. I mean, you can see there's just a ton of these up and available for sale. And so again, very similar to the, the Summer of Superman, Supergirl cover. I think that's going to hurt this book long term. Also, there is that Big Time Collectibles foil. So it has a competitor that's very, very similar in appearance. And if we look at the pricing, you can see similar to the Summer of Superman, except this one started off high. You had the people who first got it and everybody who was hyped and excited about it selling for about $60. And it has just been trending down ever since, with the most recent sales going for about $30. And since most people had to pay somewhere around $50 or $60 for the 2 statues, which made initially, a very good purchase because you could basically get the statues for free if you sold it. But here now it's actually selling for less than the cost of those statues. Now, this one, I think it'll take longer to get a full picture of where it's going to finally go to. It could continue to drop. I wouldn't be surprised if it continues to drop, considering how many are up and available for sale on eBay. But this one, while yes, I do like the idea that you had to go out and buy something to be able to get it. It made it a little more exclusive. Seems like everybody was just buying it to sell. And so that is obviously going to hurt the value a little bit long term. Now, the next one, this one actually seems interesting to me. I think this one might be worth just setting aside long term and seeing what happens with it. And that is the Milkbone Superman comic. So that's this Superman DC Comics, a Friendship Unleashed issue promotional comic that was with these, and you can see here, was with the, this box of Milk Bones. And so this one does seem to be a little more scarce, and people had a little harder time coming across them. So you can see up on eBay right now, there's only 4. This is very, very different from what we see with the Giant Size X-Men and what we saw with the Summer of Superman special. And so only having 4 up and available, one person's got it at an auction, maybe that's your chance to pick this up, because the rest of them are buy it nows that are around $50. Now, if we look at the sales history for this, you can see it started up around 60, then it trended down to around 30. And now we have had a jump back up to 50 for the most recent sale. And that could be because we had the trailer, we've got the movie coming out. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes back down to kind of like the $30 mark or so. But this is the type of book that I could potentially see, I don't know, 10 years, 20 years from now, this turning into one of those Amazing Spider-Man all detergent type books where it ends up actually getting really collectible and desirable from people. So this is one that I feel like if you get it for the right price, right? And unless you, I mean, especially if you can find it, for free out there with Milk Bones, and you got a dog and you're just getting it for free with something that you're picking up for your dog, absolutely get it. But if you can get it for a reasonable price, or you find it in some bin or something like that, this to me feels like the type of book that you would want to set aside, because this is the one that meets that criteria a little bit more. It seems like it was much harder to get, even though it just came out. There are not many of them up and available for sale on eBay. There are a couple that have been graded. There are some graded copies that are out there, but only a few right now. Now, I mean, I'm guessing maybe that'll get added to over time. But this one just had the feel like it was a little bit harder to get when it came out. Like people were rushing out and trying to find them, and they were having trouble getting those. Now, the last one that we're going to talk about. This is one that has held up. I mean, I'll say surprisingly well, but in some ways not, because the other books that have been put out that featured this character and this real life person have held up very well in the collector market. And that is the Amazing Spider-Man #1 Eminem Hustle variant. Now, there are a few different variants for this. I believe there's the sketch cover and there's the spotlight cover. We're just talking about the original, just the standard Hustle variant with Eminem and Spider-Man on the cover. And you can see with this one, I just decided to look for 9/8. That's all I have here because it's been out long enough. This came out in 2022. Technically, I think it was really available in like early 2023. So this one's been out there long enough that raw copies are, I feel like, a little less likely to come across, and you're more likely to try to collect a 9/8. It's a modern book. You really want the 9/8 with a book like that. And so you can see here, this one's got it listed for $830, which actually isn't all that unreasonable. It's a little high, but it's not all that unreasonable. If we look at the sales history for this book, you can see here, it out of the gate, $650. And yeah, it had a few little drops there down to $429, down to $400, back up to $585, down to $480, a spike up here to $850. That was actually the peak sale. And that's what that person is trying to replicate, you know, like there's that $850 sale out there. They got it listed for $830, but then it's at $700 and the last sale at $750 in May. And so, I mean, this book legitimately is probably around a $650 to $750 book right now. And it came out of the gate 2 years ago. Well, 2.5 years ago for $650. So held up surprisingly well. Now, like I said, there are a couple other Eminem comics that are out there, and those also are very, very collectible. It's a very he's known to be a comic collector. It's kind of a unique market, and so you have somebody that's a comic collector that's also a very popular rapper and all of that, and so this one has held up well. And so it just, after this amount of time, after 2.5 years, if you had been waiting on this book to see what was going to happen, your risk is probably relatively low picking up a copy of this if you were able to get it somewhere between that, $600 and $700 ish price point. I mean, you can see there are fluctuations. It has dropped down at points to $400, but this is the type of book to me that feels like now is actually held up relatively well. And long term, I feel like there's probably not a huge amount of risk with it. You also have some different options if you want to go for, like I said, that sketch variant or the spotlight variant. Now, the ones that have Eminem's signature on them, because people can get those JSA signatures certified now, those do go for quite a bit, usually like $3,500. I think the last sale might have been $3,600 with the signature. So those signatures do add a huge premium to the price of these books. But even just the standard graded copies have held up really, really well. So they don't all drop. Like I was thinking that this would probably drop because it just was getting so much hype. And this was around the comic boom period. But unlike almost every other comic boom book, this has actually held up surprisingly well. So yeah, I just thought that these were interesting to talk about just in light of that big Amazing Spider-Man #20 Uniqlo edition sale, that there are some out there that I think could potentially be reasonable options if you want to try to spec on something long-term, like this Superman Milkbone issue, but others that I think the likelihood that they're going to retain value and even maybe go up long-term are pretty low, or like this one, the Summer of Superman special, and the giant size X-Men one GameStop foil. But hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit that like button, subscribe button, notification bell, and I will see you on the next one.